I am back, left off where Mike was enjoying himself at JOYLAND Park. And the rides in the village were Zamps, meant mostly for boys and girls between ages of 3 and 7. But you have to remember how seldom Mike Ross had gone out, especially since his pneumonia the year before, and how many days he had sat with his mother at the end of the boardwalk, listening to the rumble of the riders and listen to the rumble listening to the rumble of the rides and the happy screams coming from the beach, knowing that stuff wasn't for him. What was for him was more gasping for air as his lungs filled, more coughing, a gradual inability to walk even with the aid of crutches and braces, and finally the bed where he could die, wearing diapers under his PJs and an oxygen mask over his face. Wiggle Waggle Village Wiggle Waggle Village was sort of depopulated with no greenies to play the fairy tale parts, but Fred and Lane had reactivated all the mechanicals. The magic beanstalk that shot out of the ground in a burst of steam. The magic beanstalk that shot out of the ground in a burst of steam. The witch crackling in front of the witch cackling in front of the candy house, the Mad Hatter's tea party, the nightcap wearing wolf who lurked beneath one of the underpasses and sprang at the train as it passed. As we rounded the final turn, we passed three houses all kids know well. One of straw, one of sticks, and one of bricks. Watch out for pigs, Lane cried, and just when they came waddling onto the tracks, uttering amplified oinks, Mike shrieked with laughter and yanked the whistle. As always, the pigs escaped barely. The, yeah, the pigs escaped barely. When we pulled back into the station, Annie let go of my hand and hurried up to the engine. Are you okay, hon? Want your inhaler? No, I'm fine. Mike turned to Lane. Thanks, Mr. Engineer. My pleasure, Mike. He held out a hand, palm up. Slap me 5 if you're still alive. Mike did, and with gusto. I doubt if he'd ever felt more alive. Now I've got to move on, Lane said. Today, I'm a man of many hats. He dropped me a wink. Annie vetoed the whirly cups, but allowed Mike, now without apprehension, to ride the Cher-O planes. She gripped my arm even harder than she had my hand when his chair rose 30 feet above the ground and began to tilt, then loosened up again when she heard him laughing. God, she said, look at his hair, how it flies out behind him. She was smiling. She was also crying, but didn't seem aware of it, nor of my arm, which had found its way around her waist. Fred was running the controls and knew enough to keep the ride at half speed rather than bringing it all the way up to full, which would have had Mike parallel to the ground, held in only by the centri- uh, centrifugal force. When he finally came back to Earth, the kid was too dizzy to walk. Annie and I took an arm and guided him to the wheelchair. Fred toted, toted, toted Mike's crutches. Oh man, he seemed to be all he could say. Oh man, the dizzy speedboats. A land ride in spite of the name was next. Mike rode over the painted water in one with Milo, both of them clearly loving it. Annie and I took another one. Although I had been working at JOYLAND for over 4 months by then, I had never been on this ride, and I yelled the first time I saw us rushing proud first at Mike and Milo's boat, only to sheer off at the last second. Wimp, and he shouted in my ear. When we got off, Mike was breathing hard, but still not coughing. We rolled him up the hound dog. We rolled him up hound dog way and grabbed sodas. The Gazuni refused to take the 5 spot Annie held out. Everything's on the house today, ma'am. Can I have a pup, mom, and some cotton candy? She frowned, then sighed and shrugged. Okay, that just as long as you understand that stuff is still off limits, Buster. Today's an exception and no more fast rides. He wheeled ahead to the popalicious shot, his own pop trotting beside him. She turned to me. It's not about nutrition. Mm, it's not about nutrition if that's what you're thinking. If he gets sick to his stomach, he might vomit, and vomiting is dangerous for kids in Mike's condition. They I kissed her, just a gentle brush of my lips across hers. It was like swallowing a tiny drop of something incredibly sweet. Hush, I said. Does he look sick? Her eyes got very large. For a moment, I felt positive that she was going to slap me and walk away. The day would be ruined and it would be my own stupid goddamn fault. Then she smiled, looking at me in speculative way that made my stomach feel light. I bet you could do better than that if you had half a chance. Ooh. Before I could think of a reply, she was hurrying after her son. It really would have made no difference if she'd hung around because I was totally flummoxed. Annie, Mike, and Milo crowded into one ear of the gondola glide, which crossed above the whole park on a diagonal. Fred Dean and I rode beneath them in one of the electric carts with Mike's wheelchair tucked in back. Seems like a terrific kid, Frank commented. He is, but I never expected you to go all out like this. That's for you. That's for you as much as for him. You've done the park more good than you seem to know, Dev. When I told Mr. Easterbrook I wanted to go big, he gave me the green light. You caught him? I did indeed. The thing with the roses, how'd you pull it off? Fred shot his cuffs and looked modest. A magician never tells his secrets. Don't you know that? Did you have a card in a bunny gig when you were with Blitz Brothers? No, sir, I did not. All I did with the Blitzies was ride jock and drag the midway. And although I did not have a valid driver's license, I also drove a truck on a few occasions when we had to I also drove a truck on a few occasions when we had to DS from Rube Ranch or other in the dead of night. So where did you learn the magic? Fred reached behind my ear, pulled out a silver dollar, dropped it into my lap, here and there, all around the square. Better goose it a little, Jonesy. They're getting ahead of us. From Skytop Station, where the gondola ride ended, we went to the merry-go-round. Lane Hardy was waiting. He had lost the engineer's cap and was once more sporting his derby. The park's loudspeakers were still pumping out rock and roll, but under the wide, flaring canopy of what's known in the talk as the spinning Jenny, the rock was drowned. The rock was drowned out by the Calliope playing a bicycle built for two. It was recorded, but still sweet and old-fashioned. Before Mike could mount the dish, Fred dropped to one knee and regarded him gravely. You can't ride the Jenny without a Joyland hat, he said. We call them dog tops. Got one? No, Mike said. He wasn't coughing, but dark patches had begun to creep out beneath his eyes, where his cheeks weren't flushed with excitement. He looked pale. I didn't know I was supposed to. Fred took off his own hat, peered inside, showed it to us. It was empty, as, as all magicians' top hats must be when they are displayed to the audience. He looked into it again and brightened. Ah, he brought out a brand new Joyland dog top and put it on Mike's head. Perfect. Now, which beast do you want to ride? A horse? The unicorn? Marva the mermaid? Marva the mermaid? Leo the lion? Yes, the lion, please, Mike cried. Mom, you ride the tiger. Mom, you ride the tiger right next to me. You bet, she said. I've always wanted to ride a tiger. Hey, champ, Lane said. Let me help you with the ramp. Let me help you up the ramp. While he did that, Annie lowered her voice and spoke to Fred. Not a lot more, okay? It's all great, a day you'll never forget, but he's fading, Fred said. I understand. Annie mounted the snarling green-eyed tiger next to Mike's line. Milo sat between them, grinning a doggy grin. As the merry-go-round started to move, a bicycle built for two gave way to 12th Street Rag. Fred put his hand on my shoulder. You'll want to meet us at the spin. We'll make that his last ride. But you need to visit the costume shop first and put some hustle into it. I started to ask why, then I realized I didn't need to. I headed for the back lot, and yes, I put some hustle into it. That Tuesday morning in October of 1973 was the last time I wore the fur. I put it I put it on a costume shop and used Joyland under to get back to the middle of the park, pushing one of the electric carts as fast as I would go, as fast as it would go. My Howie hat bouncing up and down on one shoulder. I surfaced behind Madame Fortuna shy just in time. Lane, Annie, and Mike were coming up the midway. Lane was pushing Mike's chair. None of them saw me peering around the corner of the shy. They were looking at the Carolina spin, their necks craned. Fred saw me though. I raised a paw. He nodded, then turned and raised his own paw to whoever was currently watching from the little sound booth above customer services. Seconds later, Howie music rose from all the speakers. First up was Elvis singing Hound Dog. I leaped from cover, going to my Howie dance, which was kind of a fucked up soft shoe. Mike gaped. Annie clapped her hands to her temples as if she'd suddenly been afflicted with the monster headache. They started laughing. I believe that followed. I believe what followed was one of my better performances. I hopped and skipped around Mike's chair, hardly aware that Milo was doing the same thing, only in the other direction. Hound Dog gave way to the Rolling Stones version of Walking the Dog. That's a pretty short song, which was good. I hadn't realized how out of shape I was. I finished by throwing my arms wide and yelling, Mike, Mike, Mike. That was the only time Howie ever talked. And all I can say in my defense is that it really sounded more like a bark. Mike rose from his chair, opened his arms, and fell forward. He knew I'd catch him, and I did. Kids half his age had given me the Howie hug all summer long, but no hug had ever felt so good. I only wished I could turn around and squeeze him the way I had Haley Steinsfield, expelling what was wrong with him like an aspirated chunk of hot dog. Face buried in the fur, he said, You make a really good Howie, Dev. I rubbed his head with one paw, knocking off his dog top. I couldn't reply as Howie. Barking his name was as close as I could come close to that, but I was thinking, A good kid deserves a good dog. Just ask Milo. Mike looked up into Howie's meshed eyes. Will you come to the holster with us? I give him an exaggerated nod, and patted his head again. Lane picked up Mike's new dog top and stuck it back on his head. Annie approached. Her hands were clasped demurely at her waist, but her eyes were full of merriment. Can I unzip you? Can I unzip you, Mr. Howie? I wouldn't have minded, but of course I couldn't let her. Every show has its rules, and one of Joyland's hard and fast was that Howie the Happy Hound was always Howie the Happy Hound. You never took off the fur where the conies could see. I ducked back into Joyland under, left the fur in the cart, and rejoined Annie and Mike at the ramp leading up to the Carolina spin. Annie looked up nervously and said, Are you sure you want to do this, Mike? Yes, it's the one I want to do most. All right then, I guess. To me, she added, I'm not terrified of heights, but they don't exactly thrill me. Lane was holding a car door open. Climb aboard, folks. I'm going to send you up where the air is rare. He bent down and scruffled Milo's ears. You're sitting this one out, fella. I sat on the inside, nearest the wheel. Annie sat in the middle, and Mike on the outside, where the view was best. Lane dropped the safety bar, went back to the controls, and reset his derby on a fresh slant. Amazement awaits, he called, and up we went, rising with the stately calm of a coronation procession. Slowly, the world opened itself beneath us. First the park, then the bright cobalt of the ocean on our right, and all of the North Carolina lowlands on our left. When the spin reached the top of its gray circle, Mike let go of the safety bar, raised his hands over his head, and shouted, "We're flying!" A hand on my leg, Annie's. I looked at her and she mouthed two words, "Thank you." I don't know how many times Lane sent us around, more spins than the usual ride. I think, but I'm not sure. What I remember best was Mike's face, pale and full of wonder, and Annie's hand on my thigh, where it seemed to burn. She didn't take it away until we slowed to a stop. Mike turned to me. Now I know what my kite feels like, he said. So did I. When Annie told Mike he'd had enough, the kid didn't object. He was exhausted. As Lane helped him into his wheelchair, Mike held out a hand. Palm up. Slap me, high five if you're still alive. Grinning, Lane slapped him five. Come back anytime, Mike. Thanks. It was so great. Lane and I pushed him up the midway. The booths on both sides were shut up again, but one of the shies was open. Annie Annie Oakley's shooting gallery, standing at the chunk board where Pop Allen has stood all summer long, was Fred Dean in his three-piece suit. Behind him, chain-driven rabbits and ducks traveled in opposite directions. Above them were bright yellow ceramic chicks. These were stationary, but very small, like to try your shooting skill before you. These were stationary, but very small, like to try your shooting skill before you exit the park. Fred asked. There are no losers today. Today, everybody wins a prize. Mike looked around at Annie. Can I, Mom? Sure, honey, but not long, okay? He tried to get out of the chair, but couldn't. He was too tired. Lane and I propped him up, one on each side. Mike picked up a rifle and took a couple of shots, but he could no longer steady his arms. Even though the gun was light, the BB struck the canvas backdrop and clicked into the gutter at the bottom. Guess I suck, he said, putting the rifle down. Well, you didn't exactly burn it up. Fred allowed, but as I said, today everyone wins a prize. With that, he handed over the biggest Howie on the shelf, a top stuffy that even sharp shooters couldn't earn without spending $8 or $9 on reloads. Mike thanked him and sat back down, looking overwhelmed. That damn stuff